If there was ever a time to want to review La Fin du Monde, it's January 2021. One of my favorite breweries, Unibroue. This is an interesting one. I haven't drank this one in a while. It's been about 3 years. Asking Alessandro, it's been about the same thing for him. This is a pretty popular common beer, easy to find in Canada and the US. You can find it in most liquor stores that are going to carry some imported beers. A lot of people think of it as a champagne beer. It's the end of the world. La Fin du Monde by Unibroue out of Chambly, Quebec. What do you got there, Alessandro? What is that?
I don't know, I thought I noticed something.
What do you see?
Yeah, I actually see it, Joe. I think we did it. We reached it.
Where do we reach?
The end of the world!
As a real ode to the adventurers who conquered a hostile land, La Fin du Monde has the same color as the gold they desperately sought. When the first explorers set foot on the banks of the Saint Laurent, they thought they had come to the end of the world.
We did it! La Fin du Monde is apparently in Quebec. If ever you're wondering what's on that sticker there, that massive orange shoe that just looks like a boot, that is the province of Quebec, my home province in beautiful Quebec, Canada. We're going to do a quick review on this one. I'm so excited for this one. I say that every review, how excited I am, but I'm really, really excited for this one.
I think we should start right away, but just one extra thing, I'm happy that you clarified that it's actually the shape of Quebec, because the first time I looked at it, I was thinking, what is that? Is that like Middle Earth? I wasn't sure actually, so I think that's an important detail.
It's not obvious, right? It's not that easy to recognize it. If you're not used to seeing it on its own, if you're just used to looking at a world map or a map of North America, that shape isn't too recognizable.
No, exactly. I would have never guessed that. That's the shape specifically. I didn't click anything in my head, so I think it's a good information also to have. But let's get going. I think we all want to try. We can't wait.
Just to clarify something before we begin, we are drinking out of the 341 milliliter bottles. These aren't the larger 750 milliliter bottles that are quart. A lot of people associate this with champagne. A lot of people call it the champagne beer, at least I've heard growing up. We are drinking the bottled version, the cap version. Whether that has an actual difference, maybe that's something we can talk about, but just for to clarify for the sake of the review. Let's do it! I love that silver foil. It always just makes it seem extra fancy.
It does. It looks nice. It's going to look even nicer here in my collection.
Ooh, how are we doing with that? How does it look? Can you see a solid line of caps in the bottom of the box yet?
So, what do you think?
Have they reached Argentina yet on the map?
Yeah, so we are scraping the top part of Argentina. We've almost reached South Africa there, so we're in good shape. We're
getting to South Africa. That's a big deal. Cheers, everybody. Let's pour this out. As per usual in our reviews, going to pour about 1/3 of the glass to leave enough room for your nose to fit on in there into your tasting glass. Get all those beautiful aromas. You can use a wine glass. I'm using a Belgian beer glass here, all the same. Anything that comes to a point around your nose, captures in those aromas, you are good to go. All right, let's start. Let's get a big whiff of this. Oh man. I remember this one having a really, really strong, interesting aroma. Wow. I will let you start, good sir. What do you think? Tell me your thoughts.
So, we just recently reviewed the San Bernardus Triple. And I think that's nice because it gives us a reference point. And by the way, if you haven't watched that video, we'll link it up here. Go watch it because it's great. But talking about this beer in particular, I think it has a lot of elements that are similar to the triple. It's definitely like a Belgian triple style. But it was something that I couldn't pinpoint at first. You get that honey flavor, aroma. And then there's this edge that was a little bit difficult at first, but then taking a second smell, it smells like baked bread, freshly baked bread, like a baguette, something like that. That's the aroma that I'm getting.
So what's your score? How's it rating?
So aroma-wise, this is pretty awesome. Like the amount of different like honey, baked. So for the aroma, I'm gonna go with a 3 here. I really like this aroma. It really invites me to go into the glass. So I'm gonna give it a 3 here.
It's getting a 3 out of 3 for aroma from Alessandro. That's surprising. I wasn't expecting that. You definitely get a little bit of honey, but I get spice. That's what I've always associated with this beer from the time I was 18, 19 years old, maybe trying this for the first time. I always associated with being spicy. I associated the taste of being spicy. I'll see later if that matches what my memory is. I get a little bit of oregano. I'm getting a very herby aroma from it, as well as the sweet. You definitely get a little bit of that honey. I love the aroma. It's not quite at the perfect level for me. It's there. What you do get is very intriguing. It makes you want to take a sip. It's not too overwhelming. I think for me personally, I need to save the 3 on 3 for an aroma that really sort of takes you over when you stick your nose into that glass. Something that's really kind of present, very strong, but still at the same time nice and smooth and balanced. So hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It's getting a 2 for me. Still extremely, extremely good. Can't go perfect, but it's a great start. Let's move on to the taste. Oh, wow. You know, you can tell that Unibroue is so inspired by Trappist beers. So many of their beers are modeled after Belgian quadruples, this especially after a triple.
You're absolutely right, my friend. It checks all the boxes of a triple. So I was trying and analyzing also a little bit of the aroma you get after you've taken a sip, and I can definitely see what you mean. I did maybe get the spices on the nose, but they were not as prominent for me. But they're definitely more there now that I've taken a sip. You get that almost like coriander, oregano, yes, like in that realm for sure, herbal. Taste-wise, I have to say, I do get a little sweetness initially, that bitterness, the feeling of the alcohol a little bit more. So it warms you up like while you're taking a sip.
Yeah.
So I would say that on the taste, I actually am gonna go with a 2 out of 3. I think it is a very balanced beer, very nice. It touches a lot of the different elements, but it's definitely not a perfect beer for me in that regard.
You can tell this is very strongly modeled after a strong triple. Other triples that we've talked about and reviewed here before, not an official review, but talked about casually, was the St. Bernardus triple. 1% less in alcohol. That was an 8. This is 9% alcohol. So much smoother though. If you're proportioning it out, 8% to 9%, how smooth is it in comparison? The St. Bernardus blew it out of the park. If I'm going to give those brewers, the wizards at St. Bernardus, perfect scores, this is going to have to be a 2 on 3 for me as well. The taste is a little too bitter for what it is for my liking. I've said this on this channel before that I think strong beers, their downfalls are where they're just not balanced, where the taste, the aroma don't sit well with the alcohol, the high amount of alcohol. And here I find the taste, you can tell it's 9% alcohol. The bitterness stays on your tongue afterwards. It lingers and it overpowers the other flavors for me that could be there. Again, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It's a good beer, but it's only getting 2 out of 3 for me. From there, we move on to mouthfeel.
So I'm running a little low here, so I want to give them justice. I want to make sure that there's enough in the glass to get the whole experience. So mouthfeel, I would say that the carbonation is there, which elevates a little bit all the elements. But I think while like on the taste, that bitterness and that presence of alcohol was kind of like unbalancing it a little bit for me and pointing it in the direction of like, okay, well, it's not a perfect beer, but still it's checking all the interesting experiences that you can have palate-wise. On the mouthfeel, I have to say, this is probably not one of my favorites. Nothing, again, like it's just a personal opinion, but for the fact that yes, you do get the carbonation, You do get a silkiness, but you get that strong presence of alcohol that comes through, and you can clearly feel it. And again, like Joe said, like for me, this is not something that I particularly like and enjoy. So on this, like I would say, mouthfeel wise, compared to others I've had, I'm not going to go very high on this. I'm going to give it just like a nice. So 1 out of 3 on the mouthfeel.
What? This is our first official 1 in a review episode. We've never given a 1 before. It's a big deal. Mouthfeel's a hard one. For me, mouthfeel has to be, for it to get 3 on 3 especially, it's got to be something unique. When we talked about Guinness, that's a unique mouthfeel, right? That's something that's 3 on 3. That's perfect. That's non-replicated. When we talk about the ABT12 that we reviewed, that got a 3 on 3 mouthfeel. That's unique for me. That feel of the ABT12 in your mouth as you're tasting that beer, yeah, that's unique for me. This is not unique for me. It has the extra carbonation that I really enjoy out of a beer. So for me, it's still gonna get a 2 on 3 just because they balance that carbonation level really well, and I enjoy that in a beer. If this was flat and it had all the other same elements, I think it'd be a 0 or a 1. But for me personally, because it has that extra kick of carbonation, it's a 2.
And let's not forget, I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are all in the realm of like good. Like 1 is just nice, 2 is good, and 3 is great. So again, like we're all talking about things that we like. It's just we like them in different degrees, and you gotta make some, some choices to decide where you stick, what you like and what you don't like. That's part of the process. That's what makes it super fun, like to analyze the beers, to better understand what you like. So please, if you have a different opinion, just write it down here in the comments. We'd love to have a nice conversation with you guys.
All right, well, let's move on to the last category that's not the overall. So the finish. I'm curious what you're going to say about the finish on this one because it's very distinct. So tell me what you think.
For the finish, I think, as you've noticed, I've taken a few sips just to make sure. The finish is to me like something that like elevates this beer a little bit because you do get that experience that you were tasting at the very beginning. You do get very clearly some of the elements. It does linger a little bit longer. But I would say not in a bad way, not in something that in a way that makes you not want to go back to the glass. So for me, that is a sign of something good. So I'm debating again if I'm going with 1 or 2 here. But I think I'm going to stick, and again, and that's just my personal preference. I'm going to stick with still with 1 here, with nice, because again, I think that alcohol presence is still like lingering a little bit too much for my liking. Like it stays there a little bit too long. So that's why I'm giving it a 1 and not a 2.
Well, a couple of 1s coming from Alessandro. He's not in a good mood today. Well, I can't give it a 3. For me, if this was going to get a 3, I would want something else in the finish other than the bitterness, which is the only thing that I'm getting. I would want either from a beer like this, I'd be looking for a smokiness maybe. I think a smokiness would put this over the top for me if it had that element. For me, it's still very good, but that bitterness is just a little bit too overpowering on it. But I can't give it a 1 because again, I find it works well for this kind of high alcohol, highly carbonated beer. I think it does a good job. It's not a perfect, it's a 2. 2 out of 3 for me as well. 2 across the board for me. All right, but now we have the overall. So I think for me, it's kind of obvious. I've given 2 out of 3s all the way through. It's got to be a 2 out of 3 overall. I can't go higher or lower on it. What's it for you?
I think that while, let's say, mouthfeel and finish for me are not the greatest, or at least less great than the others, that's the right way to put it, because I really think it's a great beer, I am going to give it an overall of 2. Because the overall experience of the beer is extremely pleasant, it's delicious, and it's very unique. So it's definitely something that I would want to go and try and seek for and try again.
So for Alessandro, that comes out to a final of 3. 3 on 5, which is a good beer according to our rating system. I expected you to have a little higher. For me, take a look at it, comes out to a little bit higher, 3.33 on 5, which is just pushing great in our scale. There you have it. I'm surprised. I love Unibroue, and I think they have so many beers that are so much better than Monde. It's interesting to me that this is the representative that they send out into the world and export as much as they do. for everybody to get a feel for their brand. I love their stuff. But this is one of my least favorite beers of theirs. I'm surprised it's their most popular.
Well, I think that breaking the beer down like we did is really helping us to better understand what we like and what we don't like in a beer. So like for me, I've had it before. I always thought it was a good beer, but doing this together really gave me an opportunity to figure out like what is that element that is kind of like taking it notch down compared to others that I've had. And for me, is that there's a lot of great elements. Like I love the aroma. I give it a 3. When I was just smelling it, I was like, this is amazing. And I still think that. But that alcohol there, like towards the finish and in the mouthfeel, to me, like it's bringing it down a notch. So I think that's what creating that unbalance there. What do you think, Joe? What was the? You went across the board pretty consistent. Was there something that you were not expecting? Like
back in my peak, let's say, going out days, hitting the town in Montreal, Fin du Monde is available pretty much at every corner store in Montreal. You can get a bottle of Fin du Monde. It's at every little dépanneur, as they call them, little corner stores. So I've drank quite a bit of this over the last 10, 15 years of my life. And I never knew how to describe it before we started thinking of beers in this way. It's just a little unbalanced. It's a very good beer. You could tell that it was masterfully crafted, but it's a little unbalanced. And that's why it was 2 out of 3 all the way through for me. It just kept approaching 3 territory, but couldn't quite get there. There's always something that's just a little bit off with this beer for me. And that's why it's not my go-to. Hopefully we can review some of their other beers down the line. We've already talked about it. There's one in particular, I'm not going to spoil it, that we're thinking about reviewing down the line if Alessandro can get his hands on it down in the US. Alessandro, hopefully you're okay down there in the South. Things aren't that easy in the States right now. Hopefully it's just a little bit of a distraction for everybody. A little bit of a joke there, Fin du Monde. It's not quite the end of the world, don't worry. We're all gonna get through this, but pretty fitting for this time. Cheers, everybody. Don't forget to close the beer brackets. Thanks for joining us. Never forget.